Welcome to another broadcast of the Lorain County Commissioners' General Meeting. Unless otherwise announced, meetings are held Thursday mornings at 9:30 at the Lorain County Administration Building, 226 Middle Avenue, 4th floor, downtown Elyria. These are public meetings, and as always, you are invited to attend.
Can you all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the December 17th meeting of the Lorain County Board of Commissioners. Commissioner Blair has our dog today.
And he's so cute.
He is very cute.
Nice and gentle, not rambunctious. Make somebody a nice little Christmas present. This week's featured pet is a 4 to 5 year old male. It says red-nosed Dachshund stray found on Lake Road in Sheffield Lake. He likes Gennaro, who's leaving. He is in cage 39 and is eligible for adoption on Saturday at 3 p.m. He's a nice dog, friendly, and house-trained. He certainly will make a nice pet. Quit talking to him, Laura. He wants to come with you.
I didn't say anything.
Yeah, he's just looking at you. It's your last chance to get a dog before Christmas. We won't be meeting again till next year. Stop by our dog kennel or check us up on the website. It's a nice little dog. Not too big.
What an inexpensive, great Christmas present. Our thought for the day: good judgment comes from bad experience. Wait, no, I'm sorry. Good judgment comes from experience. Experience comes from bad judgment. There we go. Teresa?
I don't see Alice here, so I guess we'll go to Chuck.
Yeah, we have a 20-year pin for Alice Weber from our EMA, but she is not here today. So I see Chuck Mackin in the audience, and Chuck is our superintendent over at the bridge, and he's going to be retiring. So we have a proclamation for him that I'm going to read. In the matter of expressing best wishes to Chuck Mackin on his retirement from the Lorain County Board of Commissioners. Whereas Chuck Mackin announced his retirement from the Lorain County Commissioners effective December 31st, 2009 as Bridge Supervisor Superintendent, and whereas Mr. Mackin is being recognized for more than 35 years of service to Lorain County beginning December 9th, 1974 as an oiler operator. And whereas Chuck was promoted several times as a maintenance operator on July 12th, 1978, bridge mechanic in 1983, acting assistant supervisor on March 13th, 1988, and to bridge supervisor on January 3rd, 1989. And whereas his good fellowship with working associates and county personnel has been enjoyable and he will be missed. And whereas Chuck will enjoy more time being a fan of NASCAR, radio control, car racing, gardening, and cooking. Now therefore be it resolved by the Lorain County Board of Commissioners and staff that we express our appreciation to Chuck for the fine service he has given to Lorain County. Further be it resolved that we wish Chuck, his wife Diane, and his children Matt and Sarah the very best of happiness, peace, and good health to be enjoyed throughout his retirement and to continue to make the best salsa. And he does make awesome salsa. Signed Lori Kukowski, Ted Kalo, and Betty Blair.
And they didn't mention. And they didn't mention his grandson Caleb.
Yes.
What a character!
Or I play guitar now too.
I heard
So
you were
maybe I
taking
can come up
lessons.
sometime and entertain you. Thank you
Well,
very much.
you'd be welcome.
You want me to say a few words?
Sure do.
Okay, there'll be very few. I'd like to I appreciate the support from the Board of Commissioners over the years and also from Jim. I've been in charge down there, like you mentioned, for like 20 years. And I've worked with some very good people up here and down at the bridge, and I really appreciate your support, and I'd like to thank you.
And we
Quite welcome.
appreciate you, Chuck.
And I
Congratulations,
will bring you
Chuck.
some salsa.
Yeah, bring some salsa.
Anyway, thank you. Have a nice holiday.
Thank you.
You too.
We can use some music during the dog presentation, Chuck.
Yeah.
Background.
So he's gonna have to work Labor Day with me because he's the one that brings the salsa for us.
Oh, yeah.
So even if he retired.
Well, I think we'll let him come back and ceremonially open the bridge occasionally.
There you go.
Okay,
Under
ready.
resolutions, number 1, Job and Family Services bills.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Investments.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Appropriations.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Transfers.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
No advances, no repayments, requisitions.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Travel expenses.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Bills.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Under the Commissioners, authorize various personnel actions as indicated on the summary sheet for employees within jurisdiction of Lorain County Board of Commissioners.
Mr. Cortez?
Thank you, Madam President. I do have a number of personnel issues at Golden Acres, Job and Family Services, Community Development, and I want to talk about our ongoing labor issues and also the fact-finding that's taking place today. I indicated when I saw you guys yesterday that it was yesterday, but it is today that it's going on. And I think that's it for now, but I'll check my folder and any additional information I'll put under my report. Thank you.
I just got a grievance on my desk this morning, too. Can we talk about that also?
From where,
If-
please?
A
If you-
grievance?
From where, though? You said, I didn't hear you.
I got it on my desk this morning. Is that something we can talk about also? The
Yeah, we can take a look at it if you like.
telecommunication operator?
Thank you.
The issues that I asked for are allowable under the discussion to be under the Sunshine Law in executive session, so I request that we have an executive session to conclusion of our regular board meeting today to do so.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Authorize the exemption of expenditures of $1,000 or less for prior certification requirements.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Express the Commissioner's intent to conduct an internet auction for the sale of unneeded, obsolete, or unfit county personal property in the calendar year 2010, advertised in the Chronicle on December 29th, 2009, and January 12th, 2010.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Authorize Commissioner Blair, Commissioner Kayla, Commissioner Kukowski, and County Administrator Cortez to utilize the county's Lorain Visa credit card for the year 2010 in the amount not to exceed $5,000. Expenditures are work related to include CCAO and NACO conferences, and for such items as food, lodging, telephone, gas, and oil, minor vehicle maintenance, and emergency repairs of county-owned or leased vehicles.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Yes, please take me off of that.
Yeah, you could take me off, too. I think we do that every year, don't we, Ted?
Correct.
I know, but I just put it on, just make sure, so,
Right.
LK and TK off, okay. Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
I just don't want him to send me one and something happened to it, you know what I mean? And I'd rather
That's
just
fine.
not even have one.
Authorize count,
Normally, just for clarification,
I know you needed to book,
yeah, I
Things
usually
ahead of
just
time.
reserve rooms for our folks traveling on the card while we wait for checks and things like that. We hardly ever use the county credit cards for anything. But a lot of times, in order to get the government rates on rooms, if people are traveling, we have to book a block of rooms. So that's what we really use the credit card for. And normally, people take a check down with them and pay for a check when they get there. I'm just saying that for the public's understanding of what we do with those credit cards.
so they don't think we're out, whining and dining each other or something.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
authorize county administrator and assistant county administrator to provide and execute all necessary documents effective, and I had this for December 23rd because we were gonna meet. Do you wanna move this till tomorrow?
That's fine.
Okay. So December
18.
18th, 2009, right, through December 31st, 2009, for
Yeah,
the
you're-
year-end close activity, including but not limited to transfers, advances, repayments, appropriations, requisitions, travel, bills, payroll-related transaction, and payments.
So moved.
Second.
And as usual, we all get copied on anything that happens from that time period.
As long as I want job security, I think you do.
That's right.
As
Okay.
long as you understand.
I understand completely, thank you.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Authorize the first quarter fiscal year 10 temporary appropriation budget in the amount of $30,558,664 for the county general fund.
30 million. I thought
That's
it
the
was
first quarter.
47.
It's for the first
That's the
quarter.
first
Okay,
quarter.
yep, I'm sorry. Okay. Do we want to talk about some of these cuts?
Yeah.
We had the,
It's not on the agenda because we had numbers come in late. Shirley, that's what you were asking?
the total general fund is going to be $47,404,102.
104, actually, they just made another change. We had a rounding
Oh,
issue.
okay, 104.
104,000.
But today, since we are going to just be doing a quarterly budget only on salaries and PERS, so the total for today will be 30,000
Oh, 30 million.
or 30 million. Is this going to change too? This okay? $30,558,664, and that's for the first quarter. Criminal justice, $6,809,000. 200 or is that 2 million? 2,309,000 for prosecutor salary, PERS, Medicare, and 4.5 million allocated to the jail. So the total general fund and criminal justice will be $54,213,102.
The criminal justice fund being the 6 month. the
104. I'm sorry.
The 6 months of collections of the 0.5% sales tax that was repealed in November.
Correct. This will be a 3% cut to salary and PERS to the following departments: the commissioners, all of our departments, the auditor, common pleas court, domestic relations court, probate court, and the board of elections.
You want to make explanations as to those, the commissioner, why those departments? A lot of those departments that absorb cuts have other funding revenues, special funds and such. And based on some of the returns that we talked about through the budget hearings, it was felt that on top of the commissioners taking the cuts, that those departments could also absorb some of the cuts. This is a living document. For those of you who didn't take cuts, such as the sheriff and the jail, the board decided not to make any cuts there. We decided to make the prosecutor's office whole to go back to 40 hours, especially in light of all the investigations and the murders all over the county, 3 or 4 in the past month.
I think you need to talk about the 4E money, how that was able to happen.
Right. Go ahead. All right, let me get that page up. Well, in light of the sheriff's department, the $4.5 million was our budget stabilization fund that we normally use. We were able to use $4.5 million out of the criminal justice fund to support the jail on top of its 0.25% sales tax. And then also the prosecutors in the last couple of years, Prosecutor Will's office has been able to bring dollars back to the county that were never required before for the 4E, which is the Children's Services account. Correct, Mr. Corey? Well, I have you back there so I don't misstate. So we're able to fund the 4E out of the monies that they brought back here in grant funding, similar to what other departments do. So they'll be able to go 40 hours. And I don't know if you'd like to comment at all, George, about the layoffs of people and the bodies and the cuts that you're taking to be able to make that budget work and still hit 40 hours?
I think you should come up. You had to be on TV.
Put a new breathe right strip on.
He's bad.
I'll pay for it tomorrow. Huh.
Morning.
Morning.
George.
A couple things I guess are pertinent to the question. We entered into a contract with the federal government to obtain what they call Title IV-E funding to fund our Children's Services Division. We've been successful in obtaining that funding. It'll amount to a little over $200,000. In addition, we reached an agreement with Children's Services to also assist us in the funding of that department. The net effect is about $300,000 between the two funds. What that will allow us to do is allow us to go back to 40-hour work weeks. Our salary levels will be less than the salary levels that were paid to our employees in 2008. We're not going to be able to get up to 2008 salary levels. So we're going to be a few percent under for each. It's also going, and I also might add, is we added about $62,000 by making an application for federal stimulus money that we received that will pay for a prosecutor. However, we're going to have to lay off a prosecutor and still lay off a secretary. So the net effect is we'll be back to 40 hours a week, one less prosecutor, one less secretary, and at salary levels less than we paid our employees in 2008.
Commissioner, would you like to talk about how we were able to bring that funding in?
Yeah, a week or two ago, the auditor, Mark Stewart, had contacted me, and I guess there's been some talk in years past about him wanting to take over the tax map office, which is now funded through the general fund. He has offered to pay for the entire tax map office except for a draftsman under his real estate assessment fund. So we're looking at probably at least $250,000 a year that'll save the general fund, and it will be covered through the auditor's office, and he's guaranteed that year after year. So it's not like one of those, a lot of the one-time shot in the arm kind of issues where it's, just for this year. This is going to be an ongoing savings to the general fund. So we were able to take some of that money and redirect that to the prosecutor's office.
I think we need to thank the engineer and the auditor for working
Absolutely.
cooperatively to make that happen. So again,
Yeah. Efficiencies in government, that's what we need to strive for in these tough economic times. And that's luckily, the cooperation between the auditor and the Lorain County engineer.
Anything else?
Do you want to talk about the other cuts that we
Might as
also
well.
made? The Lorain County Community Alliance, we normally allocate them $25,000 a year. We are not going to allocate anything to them for 2010. We all know that we cut the transit 400,000, so we're
Yeah,
still
did that.
giving them 100,000 plus we got the infusion of 293, was it?
great, correct, 293,000, Congresswoman Sutton's efforts, Governor Strickland, ODOT Director Jolene Mola-Torres. The board decided we're going to put the 100,000. We were trying to work with Dial-Ride, which wasn't getting us anywhere, into the funds for transit, and we're having other discussions. We'll have worksheets hopefully from our transit director on Monday on what cuts will have to become forthcoming. This is not a saving. This is actually a partial saving, correct, Mr. Cordez? We're still anticipating cuts of fixed routes, but not as severe as the shutdown of transit.
I anticipate that you're still going to need a reduction of about 50% of the fixed routes, at least. More than likely a slowing of the remaining routes, because we're not able to match the money. While we're grateful that we have it from the state and all the assistance that we received, trying to stretch those dollars out is going to be challenging. So we're going to wait for First Transit to come back with a plan, and then the board's going to have to sit down and go through the work they did in, I think it was in June, where you ranked all the routes and ridership, because we had the public hearing, and you're going to have to decide on where the core area of service is going to be, because we're not going to be able to provide service to the complete community any longer.
And we're also going to the various communities to ask for additional help from them also, correct?
Well, I met with the Lorain County Mayors and Managers Association yesterday, and they'd like to know what cuts are coming. I said I would hope to give them some communication Monday afternoon to speak to their city councils. Our transit director's been working overtime trying to put some numbers together. And speaking with Eric Norenberg, he said their city council already had a work session scheduled for Monday evening to talk about transit, with the city council going out and then to be prepared for the city council coming in. We're hoping to have some numbers there, especially in relation to the 21 route that runs through Oberlin. And I have also asked, per our earlier public hearings, rates are going up 10 cents from $2.05 a ride to $2.15, to please put together a scheme if we were to go to $2.25, $2.35, $2.45, or $2.50 per ride. and see what additional dollars that would generate based on the amount of ridership we'll lose by doing the cuts we have to make. So we have more local match money. So we've got our hands full with it. But again, I'd like to thank Congresswoman Sutton, her staff, the governor's office, ODOT.
Jolene Molitars.
Yes, Jolene Molitars. I think I said her before. I always screw up her name.
We had a lot of people, saying, why don't you just raise the rates? We don't want transit cuts. So we're kind of listening to what the community has asked us in the past. Some of the other cuts, we have a cut of $175,000 to the Lorain County Airport, and also a $20,000 grant match to the airport. $125,000
Comment on the airport a little bit about the possible
litigation.
litigation and the FAA. Jim, if you can help us here,
We're,
because I've been getting deluged with emails from concerns at the airport.
Well, as I've indicated to each of you, and I've stated publicly, we said we're going to attempt to close the airport, but I did not believe that we were going to be allowed to do so, especially given the prior grant obligations that this board made and previous boards of commissioners have made with respect to FAA money. There's about a $12 million investment in the just the land out at the airport. We're trying to get the FAA to recognize the significant difficulties we have with regards to operating capital. They continue to send us down references indicating that you can't close because you have these resources here in Lorain County, and the obligation was that you would operate the facility if they provided the grant money. Ron and I keep sending them letters saying that's really nice, but we're still closing. And they come back very politely and say, well, you can't do that. Unless we receive something a little bit stronger, we're still moving ahead with our intentions with regard to the airport. Now, locally, we're getting a lot of pushback from the owners of the hangars, and there's some small businesses out there that seemingly have many ideas, but all of them have to do with us paying for stuff still to operate the airport. Unless we hear otherwise, we do not have the operating capital to continue forward. I'm not exactly sure whether we're going to padlock the gate on the 31st of December, or simply shut down the FBO and the airport operations and leave the gate open. I really don't know yet. I was hoping that we would get a stronger move from the FAA to see exactly what we could do. This needs to filter up their hierarchy. Nobody's actually ever tried to close an airport before like this, and so I don't think that they're able to understand the consequences either. So we'll continue to work on it. But Ron, if you have any more to add to that, you've been working with me on that. I mean, that's pretty simply where we're at.
Do we see any chance of success in this, Mr. Cortez, before we go to litigation and cost us more money?
No.
Fighting it in court?
No.
One email writer suggested we just leave the gate open.
The liabilities are tremendous, though. I mean,
Well-
that's my biggest concern is the liabilities. The leave the gate open, shut the lights off, and if somebody lands and crashes out there, we didn't do this or we didn't do that. I know various scenarios have been put forth to the commissioners, but I think that we have some liabilities, some obligations there to secure the premises, and those responsibilities aren't diminished simply because we just drop off the key and walk away. So we're running into some difficulties, and we knew this going down this road. We talked about this. We knew it was not going to be a pleasant situation. Once we know more, we'll let you know. This is new territory. It hasn't been charted before.
Can we anticipate, depending on what we hear from the FAA, that we'll be back here meeting to see if there's anything else we have to do?
Well, we'll more than likely, the FAA is going to have to, unless you decide not to continue forward with your plan, they're going to have to go to court and get some kind of injunction against us from shutting down, unless you tell me not to. My instructions from each commissioner
Correct.
was that they weren't going to fund the airport, shut it down. And my answer to that was, we'll give it the best shot possible, but anticipate litigation and the fact that we probably won't be able to do that, and especially not in such a short period of time. but we wanted to make the effort anyway, so people understand that we've talked about this before, only to lose this issue before. We just have never publicly put it out there for this kind of review prior to this.
Well, we need to look at more efficiencies out there. I brought up to Mr. Twining yesterday about possibly farming more of the land out there, bringing in additional dollars that way instead of spending money on mowing, make money on farming. And have we been in contact with Doug McConnell from the FBO? And
Doug sent a couple different scenarios. The FBO, well, let me speak to the FBO for a minute. Long before the commissioners took over the airport, the old airport authority gave away everything but the sheet metal on the building for the FBO. There really is no FBO owned by the county leased out anymore. They sold everything, chairs, desks, paper clips, whatever could be moved was sold. And the FBO basically is an old shell of a rusted building. So we don't own anything out there except that building. And then they gave up sizable rent credits in the tunes of hundreds of thousands of dollars to do whatever they said they were going to do out there for repair of that building on the big hangars. So we get very little revenue from the FBO. Ron, you may want to help me with this and come to the podium. Yeah, you
Ron
need
says,
to.
no, I don't feel like it right now, sorry.
I said no.
You're doing
We get-
fine by
we-
yourself.
We get very little revenue from that. We get very little revenue from the hangars, and a lot of it is applied to the rent credits. Now, since the board has taken over control of the airport, Mr. Twining and I have kept the rent credits down to just about zero, but we're still paying off the rent credits from the years when we weren't in charge of the airport, and they were very sizable. Whether you close the FBO or not, Commissioners, if you close it down, you're not closing down anything because you don't own anything out there. Long ago, all the assets and resources were consumed, sold, or given away from that whole operation. Ron, you may want to add to that?
Yeah, unfortunately, I forgot to bring that one file with me, so I'm doing this from memory, but we're about $23,000 on our estimate short, even with the $200,000 that we had in the budget to spend at the airport this year. It'll run about $223,000 this year in excess of any grants or receipts or fuel or landing fees or anything that we're going to receive. We've cut out the $200,000 because we just don't have it in next year's budget. We think that, you know, some of the bills can be postponed until next year, but, you know, we have that gap of at least $200,000. I believe time we paid the bills, and that's we don't pay for the people, the employees, whether they're mowing grass, plowing snow. That's not a liability of the county. That's the operator of the airport for you. That's Johnston Aviation. But you do pay for the maintenance of those trucks, and some of those bills come in for 2 hours worth of work, $5,000, because they're huge pieces of equipment to keep those runways open. You can't use salt, so we can't go to the county engineer to get salt to put on the runways. They use urea out there, and that's what FAA, they don't require it, but they do everything short of requiring urea and not salt because of the corrosive nature on the asphalt for their runway. We've deferred maintenance the last 2 years. We've got striping that, you know, the state comes out and inspects every spring. They told us 2 years ago that we need to restripe that. We bid that project in good faith this year. What we thought would be about $22,000 came in with 3 people competitively bidding, and the lowest price was $58,000. We didn't do that work. Crack sealing 3 years ago, here soon, was done for $20,000. That took care of the taxi lanes, about half of the crack sealing on the taxi lanes, nothing on the runways. FAA now has said that they will pay for the crack sealing on the runways because they realize that lengthens the life. But at the time we were arguing with them on crack sealing 3 years ago, they said, no, that's a maintenance item, that's on you. They pay for capital improvements, but they don't pay for much maintenance, and they pay nothing for operations. And the dialogue we've had continues, and
You know, we get the capital money that we receive from the FAA is 95.5. It's good capital money, and it reverberates through our community pretty strongly because of the small match. However, let me restate what Mr. Twining said. We receive absolutely zero operating capital. While transit from the FTA is matched, certain funds are matched 50-50, some are 80-20, some are 90-10, depending on the pool of resources that we're using. We don't even have a pool that we can match with FA. Prior to the board taking back the airport and disbanding the regional airport authority, there was some years that the airport authority had $1.5 million for a budget. Mr. Twining and myself have been working with around $200,000 to $225,000 a year with private companies trying to keep the airport moving and using in-house resources for things like maintenance and when we could supplement the crews out there. So I don't want anybody to think that Johnston Aviation hasn't struggled to do a decent job for us, but we just simply don't have the resources that were once provided to the airport. Now we don't have any resources. And we've gone to the people that use the airport several times, and while they've voiced some concerns, normally they just go away and they don't do anything. And I don't think that they think anybody's serious about this. There is obligations, though, that this board's going to have to get released from that were made prior to the tenure of most of the commissioners and some that predate all the commissioners here with respect to hangar leases and land usage at the facility. At $200,000 to $225,000, we were barely keeping open, hoping that we would generate some activity out there when the economy improved. And we did see that the new hangars built and a private development collaboration come together to try to foster additional use of the facility. But then, the very company that was working with that, one of their partners, we lost to private jet management out there, and then we lost the big jets because they lost their 139 certification with regard to charter. So we weren't doing any charter out of there. And once you can't charter out of there, you're not going to get the more expensive jets out there because a lot of people think that there's people wait and use their jet just for their own private travel. 95% of the time when those jets are being used, they're being used on charter, and a private company is flying folks for the owner of the jet when they're not using it. We don't have the ability to do that at the airport anymore because Johnston Aviation lost their 139 charter after they bought private jet management, which was a company that was out there that was providing those services. So we lost Spitzer's Jet and a couple other ones that we had parked out there. For a little while, about 2.5 years ago, it looked like we were making some really good headway. I was walking through the big hangar, and there was 4 or 5 really nice aircraft in the big hangar. I don't think that there's many of those left right now. There's one. So we're pretty much at the end of the road with this. Unless we get some money, we simply can't do much out there other than just shut it down and let the FAA come in and do whatever they got to do. And if they're going to put an injunction or file a lawsuit, they need to do that. So do the owners of the hangars. It's the only way it's going to be able to sort through this. Will you be ordered to pay at the end of the day? I don't know. Probably.
To the tune of how much to keep the gates open, though? I mean, we don't have to give them the full appropriation like we did last year.
You're a federally obligated airport. That's the term that they keep using. There are plenty of federal regs that say what you can and can't do. Bottom line is the most recent letter that we received says that with the grants we've received that stay in place for 20 years, you have to keep the airport. The minimum amount that you'd be subject to repaying to FAA is $9.2 million right now. We can't come up with 200,000. I don't think we can come up with 9.2 million.
I would say that from the work that we've done in the last 3 years, that we need about 225,000 to maintain what I would call minimalistic operations that are safe.
Either in a cut of expenses or increased revenue. We're not saying one or the other, but the letter that went out that's received a lot of discussion, yeah, it clearly said the consequences are we'll be forced to close the runway if we don't fill that gap. We're looking for a partnership to fill that gap.
Right.
We didn't say, well, the runway's getting closed. We need to either cut expenses or increase revenues. I think some are working on that. One other thing that to mention that Jim had talked about with those loss of the certification that we have out there. Typically, those bigger jets that would land when we had that certification came from a farther distance and bought a lot more fuel. For the operation of the airport, we were getting 8 cents a gallon on that fuel. Those have dwindled to, there are still people buying fuel, but typically those are trips that are either day trips or trips in and around Ohio or even in and around Northeast Ohio. So the fuel costs have dropped. Now, we do have some really good companies out there, some cutting edge, some that are developing. I don't know what's going to happen with them. TerraSense is one that's out there that's interesting. We have a military jet that has to make sure the airport's running. I had a conversation with him. He wants to know what's going to happen because he has to name an airport. Part of the reason that we lost the certification, and I think this is a good example if I can for a second, is because we had ARF standards, which stand for Airport Fire Protection. The federal government was willing to give us, I think it started 7 years ago and it expired 3 years ago. They were willing to give us money at 95% of the cost to buy all the firefighting equipment, pay for the building to go up, but we had to pay for a full-time firefighting crew and had
24/7.
minimum numbers, 24/7, 365 days a week. We estimated on the cheap that it would cost us about $750,000 to have that fire department in the free building with free equipment.
we've
A tough
always-
choice had to be made.
We always had the arrangement with Auburn, and they've done a fine job
Excellent
out there
job.
with emergency response, along with our EMA folks. And we were in Chicago about 4 or 5 years ago,
4 probably.
and we basically told them that we weren't going to be able to develop the resources to put the off system in for 24/7, that they needed to give us some operating capital. It was easier for us to find brick and mortar and equipment one-time money than it is to find continuing operating money. And they said they don't do operations. And that's when we started in earnest trying to convince them that eventually this airport was probably going to have to close in Lorain County. And they have been very resilient in their pushback that wasn't going to occur. I don't know where the line gets drawn in the sand, Commissioners. I really don't. I know that there's obligations out there. My understanding of what happens with this type of funding is similar to FTA funding. If the resource is no longer used, it should be liquidated at fair market value and the proceeds returned on a share basis that's comparable to how it was purchased. That is, if it was 50% federal money, 50% local money, when it's sold, then 50% returns to the federal government, 50% returns us. But they're saying we can't shut down whatsoever. I know that FTA has told us that if we liquidate any assets that way, that's the determination, because we have the condo that we've been trying to sell for 3 years over on One Park Landing.
I don't think we get to keep 50% though with the FAA.
No, I think we get about
dollars.
5%,
Yeah,
and we
yeah.
probably won't even get that. And recognizing that the Lorain County Regional Airport is I think it's currently the largest single intact parcel left in Lorain County. It's a big piece of land. I don't know if there'll be any takers out there for what they want to do. I have no idea what's going to happen with the Homeland Security money that's been spent out there. I think they spent $1 million on defense before we.
$3 million.
$3 million?
And we also have, just a couple of years ago, John Wynn Corporation invested $1 million on a new hangar. We also got CDBG dollars to extend the infrastructure for it. The economy collapsed. They've only sold 6 of the first 12. They were by now supposed to have built another 12. And we've been in conversation with the Department of Development that if the airport closes, we're going to have to pay back the $103,000 to them for the infrastructure improvement. So there are ramifications far beyond just the FAA, but we have no money.
Maybe Santa will bring you some.
Yeah.
Well, we need some guidance with regard to how we continue here.
You
I
have
can-
Life Flight that just showed up in August, but we have not seen any real bump. They've been buying fuel and things, and they're headquartered with 3 brand-new helicopters at our regional airport. They still need the instrument landing, but we don't know what's going to happen with them. So it's a scary time, and they provide emergency helicopter service for any heart attack or severe injuries, car accidents to Northeast Ohio, EMA, and folks like that. We've asked them if there's any help or assistance that they can give. Herb Delaporte is out there with his operation that piggybacks quite a bit with those folks. Yet at the same time, you know, the truth of the matter is they are a Cuyahoga County company. As good as they are, they fly those victims to hospitals in
Metro.
Cuyahoga County, and
Right.
that competes directly with our own hospitals.
Well, we don't have
If-
trauma here, though, so I mean, I think that's a different.
Yeah, we don't have
we
the,
don't have
the
trauma
the
ability,
level,
so
the proper level
And then we
trauma.
know if they pass away, the
We pay for that,
coroner,
too.
we gotta pay for that big dollars, we just found out, so.
If you try to close the airport or get rid of the instrument landing devices and everything like that, that has to be decertified officially before you have any luck closing down the airport. And that process, we've been advised, will be a 3-year process by our consultants, not by FAA.
What's
So
been the response back? I know there were 84 entities we mailed out at that airport. Believe it or not, there's 84 different entities out at that airport, so it's not a minor
right.
response back to asking to increase.
There's not 84 separate, is there, isn't there?
There's 84 entities. Some of them have, you know, one owner that has 3, but it's
Partial shares.
Yeah, it's 84 individuals that we identified as different users at the airport. I've had an awful lot of phone calls, some really good suggestions that we're still following through. I will say the best result of the letter, if we look on the positive side, is I had an hour and 11-minute conversation 2 days ago with a man that is apparently the president or the CEO of the Airport Owners and Pilots Association out of Virginia. And we had a lengthy conversation. He sent us some additional information on similar airports in our circumstances, and he's offered to continue to be a resource. He and Stephanie, who's with the FAA, our immediate contact, are both getting inundated with calls. I've had several calls. I've received no official written response other than the one from Johnston Aviation on what they feel we could do to fill the gap, but that was still $73,000 out of balance, assuming 200,000.
And that was with
It's
our,
probably
and
going to
that's
be
with our
223.
farming.
Right.
Well, with the farming, and let me make this crystal clear. The assets and resources out there are depleted. They are beyond their expected service life. These were metal buildings that weren't well built to begin with. We have been patching and putting Band-Aids on them for a couple of years. We did some painting. We tried to freshen the place up to try to attract some additional traffic and business there. But you have old, beat-up, dilapidated buildings that need replacing. The airport needs a major infusion of capital, and the FBO itself, we might as well just put the heaters outside on the runway and turn them on for as much heat loss as we have through those huge hangar doors that require hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of repairs. We've tried to do energy conservation upgrades out there. We've looked at that. We've looked for the return on investment. We haven't been able to see a clear line of sight to it making any sense. It's not for lack of innovation and creative thinking. It just doesn't
Lack
seem
of
to
money.
work. Excuse me?
Lack of funds.
It's a lack of money each time. The hangar doors are a constant source of frustration to try to keep them repaired. Johnston Aviation has done a good job, I would say, patching them together and keeping them going. But the facility was built in 64, 65?
I don't know. I always thought it was in the 70s, but
Maybe. Well, it's 30 or 40 years old, and I don't think the building was meant to get this far along. And of course, it was built with in mind that there was going to be a military reserve unit out there that was going to pump capital into the airport. Their biggest woes really started, and it was, I don't even think I was with the county at that time when they lost that military reserve unit that used to house themselves in the front of the FBO there, because there was a lot of activity at the airport. Betty, you may remember back, I don't know if you were a commissioner back when they were still there at the airport, but there was a lot of revenue derived from that operation out there.
Oh, it was a long time ago.
Well,
We had a hangar blow down, hangar 15 blow down. We had it insured. The insurance company versus the rebuild price is about $35,000 difference. We may be able to make that up, but you can't live on maybe, and we don't have the money to put with the insurance to rebuild that, and yet we haven't properly closed off the parts that are remaining. We've lost tenant, obviously, in the hangar that's not there. At least Johnston did, and we get a portion of that.
and the carousel hangars are shot. The carousels don't work, so.
I think they pulled most of those out and
Most
just
of the
put
carousels
concrete
up,
in
yeah.
and parked planes in differently there.
Yeah, well, I apologize that we're giving you nothing but negativity, but by the time that you became involved more fully in the leadership of this issue, there really wasn't much to be able to work with out there. And recognize we have no staff. We privatized this, and we're down to a minimum amount of money. We've tried to rent even the maintenance facility. We've tried to rent it out in front of the airport and get tenants out in the maintenance facility. And we tried to get the gas line across the airport to get rid of the propane gas out there and limit some costs with that, so the heating costs weren't as expensive as they were because we didn't have any natural gas. They stopped the natural gas line out by the road in front of where the industrial park was to be, and they never brought it across the airport, which would have saved some money with the FBO. So everything has been tried. We just need some guidance. Do we proceed on the current track? We are. I can tell you that without at least $200,000, I'm not sure that we're going to be able to do anything productive out at the airport.
What do you think our costs will be if we end up in litigation?
I couldn't tell you that the prosecutor represents us, so our costs are negligible there. We don't use outside counsel.
Okay, so he doesn't represent both. We don't have to use outside counsel since it is
Put your microphone towards.
I'm sorry. Since it is an entity of the county, though, he wouldn't be excluded from representing us?
No,
Okay.
not at all. Right, Jerry? I mean, I don't want
Okay.
just recognizing, as I've said before, and I'm going to state it again, this is probably a fight that we're going to lose, at least in the short term.
Any other comments? Move on to the other. Did you need any direction? Or are you just going to continue in the direction that you're going?
We'll continue in this direction, and I'll keep you informed as the situation continues to present additional obstacles, and we'll see. Currently, my direction from the commissioners is to close the airport, and we'll see what we can do with that. And Ron and I will continue.
We didn't
to
say
work towards
close the airport, we said increase revenues or decrease expenses to make it revenue neutral. Hopefully
Well,
that
unless
doesn't-
it became revenue
Right.
neutral, we were closing at the end of the
Correct.
month.
Right.
Okay, I guess that's a little bit clearer, but we're nowhere close to revenue neutral. So we'll take a look at it, and we'll individually talk to you with more discussion points. I think we're still in the budget, though, right? We're
Yep.
still-
Yes, we are.
Okay. Is there more? I want to say something about the budget with regard to how tight it is this year.
Could we finish these?
I thought we were done with that.
No,
No,
we're still
we're not
going.
even close.
We
We
just
just
talked
got
about the airport.
stuck on
and
the
then we
airport for a
stopped
while.
there, so Madam Chair, if you would continue.
Okay, the next four items relate to our economic development initiatives. The first one being GLIDE out at Lorain County Community College. We cut $125,000. The four main streets that we usually gave $25,000 per city.
Excuse me,
Is it-
5 Main
Oh,
Streets
I'm
at
fine.
15,000.
I thought it-
4 Main Streets and 1 Lorain Growth Corporation at 15,000.
Okay.
We cut those last year from the 20,000.
That's right. Okay, so we're down to cutting them 75,000, which is cutting them out completely for next year. And Team Lorain County up on our fifth floor, which is part of our growth partnership. We cut them $25,000, and also on the 5th floor, part of our growth partnership is the Lorain County Chamber of Commerce, and we cut those $25,000 for next
Which
year.
is 50% of their funding.
Correct.
And Team Lorain County as well.
Right.
Did you mention that
33%.
already?
Yes, I
I'm
did.
sorry.
Then the other two issues are our Ohio State extension. We had numerous public hearings, and Ohio State came in, and soil water came in, and we got a lot of phone calls. And if we did cut them out completely, that would mean the end of 4-H, and none of the commissioners wanted to see that happen. So we cut them to 156.6. And what would they start at, 243?
Right, what their budget will be is $103,800 for the OSU extension, which was our minimum.
Just to keep the doors open?
Well, for the 3 educators we're required to have an OSU extension. We'll be funding them $86,000 out of our general fund. And then there's a $17,000 in change that was used out of our solid waste department. We will keep there to keep the OSU extension available, so.
Right. And then the other issue was the soil and water, and we're gonna, both the Ohio State extension and soil and water, we were gonna cut them down to 0, both of those for next year. And instead, for soil and water, we're cutting them $49,000, which makes,
Is an appropriation of $75,000.
thank you. I got the cuts, but I don't have the actuals in front of me.
It's called an advance because we're working on some interesting financing.
Right. So those are our orphans, and then you had some other issues that you wanted to talk about?
You want to say the total cuts?
Yes.
At the
Total
bottom?
cuts to our agencies, $1,075,600.
That's the outside agencies, that's not our general fund.
Oh, that is general
department,
fund.
It's not our general fund mandated
Right,
department.
they're non-mandated services, necessary but non-mandated.
Do you want to do the cuts to the departments? Page 3.
$2 million? I just got this morning, so I'm not, this, okay. Okay, total cut to the commissioners will be, is that 102,791?
Correct, and 5 layoffs. Mr. Cordez, the switchboard operators as 2 and 3 out of transit?
We have 4 out of transit.
Okay.
We have 1 attrition on the switchboard and 3 part-times. The full-time would have been filled, it would have been laid
Correct,
off.
she retired.
And we currently was going to recommend an additional layoff in maintenance, but we've had a resignation in our IT department. And I need to speak to the board in January about whether we need that body filled, and then that will cause a cascade into maintenance on additional layoff there. And that was before we set this budget. So when we're going to have some additional discussions on some further reductions in our staff.
There were 5 in transit, 2 were part-time Greyhound.
5 in
Okay.
transit, 2 are
okay.
part-time
I forgot
Greyhound,
the
he said.
Greyhound people.
Full-time equivalent 4, but 5.
Okay, but we're also moving our switchboard to
Automated.
automated, so.
And that
So
was
press
tried-
1 for this, press 2 for that. I hate it, but we have to,
That was on
we have to
trial
cut
last
costs.
night, and it worked apparently fairly well. I don't know, maybe we didn't get calls, but
It's,
Lost in cyberspace.
you know, as we continue to try to find, you know, these efficiencies, convenience is going to the public is going to suffer.
Well, switching that over basically saved 1 deputy by going to the automated, $70-some thousand, correct, a year?
Well, it didn't really save a deputy. We're trying to live within the reductions.
Right,
that
within the
board's given us.
reductions, but I mean, it's those type of dollars that we had to look at savings
Mhm.
to continue to fund the other departments without cuts, the sheriff, the jail, the prosecutor.
now you're too close.
Correct.
I'm too close.
And
I don't think I speak that softly, even getting yelled at. You guys, Shirley, Elizabeth, can you normally hear me on a microphone? Can you normally-
Obviously not.
Apparently not.
Thank you, Shirley.
Turn up her hearing aid.
but we're going to have to sit down and we're going to have to look at additional reductions in our general fund departments, and find some additional economy. So I guess what I'm saying to the board is we're not done with our layoffs in the commissioners' departments. at this point with the ones that we've made. But we're gonna wait until January till the dust settles, and then we'll come back with additional recommendations on how to live within the means you provided to us.
Okay. All right, moving on. The other department that was cut was the auditor, and their cut will be $37,606. Common pleas, $64,244. Domestic relations, $151,762. Probate will be $13,401, and the Board of Elections will be $32,045.
Which is a 3% cut.
3% cut, just, not to the entire budget, but just to salaries and PERS. Okay, what else do we got? You had additional comments?
Well, you know, as you go through and you add this up, let's not forget that we did a premium holiday, which was a one-shot deal that alleviated the burden on the 0.5%, 1/4% dedicated to the jail sales tax of about $1.5 million. That we have sufficiently reduced our cash position to what I would consider a critical level with regard to our healthcare plan, which is anticipated to spend about $23 million next year. It's manageable, but we're just going to have to keep a very, very close eye on it. So that's been done. That cash will not be available to us next year. We also continue to see a decline in the sales tax, and we have not factored in a trend on declining sales tax into these numbers. We knew coming into this year that we were going to have we did put a bit of money aside for unanticipated expenses, which we did incur, which was about $1 million over the course of the year of events that were unforeseeable. We don't have that money going into this year. If we have a major issue erupt, we're going to have to dig deep to find that money. Also, I will suggest that the money that we place aside for the jail operation that we support from the 0.5% is weak. Weak at best. Probably a better word is it's insufficient. And we're going to have to deal with that. And I think it's insufficient by several hundred thousands of dollars, and it could be worse if the sales tax revenues continue to decline. We are nowhere out of this mess, period. And all of these budgets that are given out to these departments, everybody better understand that this is a temporary measure, they're quarterly allocations, and if the numbers continue to decline, we're going to have to go back and we're going to have to revisit this issue with a sharp pencil and find additional cuts. This is not for the year. This is just starting the year, and it's going to have to be managed throughout the year. There is no manageable wiggle room in what we have here. And I don't mean to sound so strong on that, but I don't want everybody to go away and say, okay, we got this and this and this, and we're fine for the year. That's not the case. Sorry.
Did you have a question?
Elizabeth Romex Oberlin. This is obviously very, very serious business. I am sorry that there wasn't a chart available on the video monitor or something, because all of those figures swirling around us were most confusing, but obviously extremely important. So if and when this sort of thing has to happen again, perhaps there could be some such public available piece.
Sorry,
of
but
Actually, some of it we just got this morning ourselves.
The staff was here till 9 o'clock last
Yeah,
night,
they worked
working on
very
the
hard.
final numbers, and we're working again this morning. Yeah.
At 7.
It's not only serious business, it's sleepless nights business.
Exactly. Any other comments?
Nope, he covered the may need additional cuts.
Correct, and this is a living, breathing document. Like you said, if revenues increase, we may, the cuts may not have to be so deep. If the revenues decrease, then we gotta cut deeper. It's just how it is.
Thank you for the public hearings and the budget hearings with all the departments. It was very helpful going through all the numbers. And again, the ones who took the cuts were basically the ones who had other revenue streams. I see Doug Messer sitting in back. I don't see Tim Luby from here, from Common Pleas. But again, it's a quarterly budget, and we'll look towards moving forward. And you know your job, Doug. You're no different than what we do up here. when it comes to common pleas, so, thank you.
And then, like the Ohio State Extension Office and Soil and Water, you know, we didn't want to cut them completely. We wanted to, at least the minimum, bare minimum, to keep the doors open there, and hoping that either the townships could help participate or the private sector could help participate too, if they need to beef those departments or beef them up in some way. Maybe somebody can help besides just the general fund allocating all the dollars.
Well, that's the hope. I believe Mr. Twining is looking up the contact information for the largest.
We have it, I just haven't distributed it yet.
Why,
Okay,
you
so
been busy?
so we can move forward in contacting those larger entities. We've been contacted by Willoway Nurseries, employees and/or management of Green Circle Growers, the people who use those entities. So maybe they would like to join us in a partnership to continue the funding and increase the services out there. So we're asking for help.
Yep. Okay, do we have a motion already?
No.
Make a motion to approve?
Second.
Anything further? Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Adopt the annual appropriation budget for the year 2010 for all other departments excluding the general fund.
So moved?
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Under Community Development, amend enterprise zone agreement with City of Avon and Hinkle Corporation and Hinkle Consumer Adhesives Incorporation. Amendment is to reflect the name change to SureTech Brand LLC.
So moved?
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Job and Family authorized purchase service agreement with Emerge Inc., Elaria, to provide internet services to the agency website for calendar year 2010 in the amount not to exceed $9,420, effective January 1st, 2010 through December 31st, 2010, and authorized director to execute on behalf of the board with prosecutor's approval as to form.
So moved?
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Authorize various personnel at Job and Families to utilize the agency's credit card for the year 2010 in the amount not to exceed $4,000 for work-related items to include conferences, food, lodging, transportation, telephone, gas, and oil, minor vehicle maintenance, and emergency repairs or county-owned or leased vehicles.
So moved?
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Under Workforce, amend Resolution 09605 adopted September 3rd, 2009, approving and entering into various purchase service contracts with youth funds. Said amendment is to reflect an increase in the YWCA internship from $20,000 to $26,535.19.
So moved?
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Under Clerk of Courts, authorize Clerk of Courts Mr. Nabokowski to utilize Lorain Visa credit card for the year 2010, not to exceed $1,000 for conferences, food, lodging, transportation, telephone, gas, and oil, or vehicle maintenance and emergency repairs of county-owned or leased vehicles.
So moved?
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Under Domestic Relations, authorize juvenile branch judges and staff to utilize Lorain Visa credit card for the year 2010 in the amount of $1,000 to $5,000 for conferences, food, lodging, transportation, telephone, gas, and oil, minor vehicle maintenance, and emergency repairs of county-owned or leased vehicles.
So moved?
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Under the engineer, instruct the clerk to advertise for bids for the Colorado Avenue reconstruction project in Sheffield Village. Notice to be published in the Chronicle on December 22nd, 29th, and January 5th, to be open at 2 p.m. on January 26th. This is to widen an existing 2.7-mile asphalt road from 2 to 3 lanes, including asphalt berms and 3-inch asphalt resurfacing, drainage improvements, guardrail, and traffic signals. Estimated cost is $4,840,825. Funding will be provided with air money in the amount of $4,540,176, and the balance will be the Federal Surface Transportation Funds and OPWC.
So moved?
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Under Mental Health, request Lorain County Auditor pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 5705.221 to certify Lorain County Commissioners the total current tax valuation for the county and the dollar amount of revenue that would be generated by 1.2 mills for the purpose of a mental health renewal or replacement levy for 5 years to be on the May 4, 2010 ballot.
So moved?
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Under the Sheriff, authorize Sheriff Stemeni and Lieutenant Debbie Reinhardt to utilize their Visa credit card for the year 2010, not to exceed $2,500 for conferences, food, lodging, transportation, telephone, gas and oil, or vehicle maintenance and emergency repairs of county-owned or leased vehicles, and payment on internet services used in criminal investigations.
So moved?
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Approve and enter into contract with Airmark Correctional Services, Inc. to provide food service to the jail. 2 bids were received on November 13th, this being the most responsive complying with specifications, and the agreement will be for 3 years effective February 1st, 2010.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Cortez, County Administrator?
Obviously, we find ourselves in some challenging times with all the budget work that's gone on this week. I want to reiterate thank you to the departments out there that work with us, our budget department and staff. And I think that we need to continue to look for increased economies with regard to what we're doing with some of these expenditures. People out there, keep getting comments out there that about our spending here in Lorain County with some of the members of our community, and I don't think that they fully appreciate some of the things that we do. And my thought for right now is to invite them to come to these meetings and come in anytime they want to look over our books, look over our spending, have any suggestions. It's easy to launch an anonymous attack and write nasty letters with no return address and send anonymous emails, but if they came up here,
I hate when my wife does that to me.
I hate when she does it to me too. But I encourage them to come and visit us and ask the questions here, and we will open the books to anybody and let them go through what they think we're doing and what we're not doing, and give them any information they want. I encourage them to get involved before they make a decision on how well or how poorly they think that we're running the operation up here. It's just a thought. We've been getting criticized quite a bit, and I don't mind being criticized, but first come and learn what's going on and then criticize. Thank you very much, Commissioners.
Mr. Ennis, Assistant County Prosecutor?
Commissioners, I would request an executive session. There are 2 matters of pending litigation that I need to discuss with you.
Commissioners report.
A couple things. I have a letter here from Avon Fire Department. It says the Avon Fire Department is currently looking to upgrade our services from Lorain County 911. We are hoping that they will tone out our departments via our Zetron system and drop the calls into our mobile data terminals. All other dispatching will continue to be done by Avon Fire Department and Avon Police Department. Their goal is to have this service operational by January 1st of 2010. So they will be on board with our County 911, another example of communities working together.
Commissioner, just as an update, we ran into a little bit of a snag on some of the software. Our target date now is the end of January, but we're still on track. We just weren't able to get the proper software into place for the end of December, but thank you for bringing that up, and hopefully next year we'll see more involvement with that.
The other thing, I don't know if this was in the paper or not, because I seen Betty was quoted on this, but I know Richard Cordray is always on top of all the scams that are going around, but it says don't fall for the old jury duty scam. He says a scammer will call someone and claims to work for the court system. The scammer will say there is a warrant out for the person's arrest for failing to report for jury duty, and the con artist says that they need the person's social security number, date of birth, and even a credit card number in order to clear up the matter. He says don't fall for it. The best rule of thumb is to never give out your personal information over the phone, regardless of who is calling. Unless you initiate the call, you really don't know or have the verification of who is on the other end. So don't fall for that jury scam. Actually, this is the one that Betty commented on. The residents for our prescription drug card, where you can save 20% on your prescriptions, you can now log on and print out that card online if you don't have a copy of it, and you can go to www.caremark.com/NACO. So for those of you who want to save some additional money on your prescription drug cards, it is now available online. And that's the end of my report.
Been a fun week. We discussed the transit issues again, thanks to the Congresswoman Sutton and the governor, and Director Molitaris for bringing that. Some closure, some help. We'll work on moving forward on more money. This morning, Commissioner Blair and I met with Senator Voinovich's aide, Diane Dowling, about issues in Lorain County where we'd like the senator, the former governor, to help us out on some capital requests. I'll let Betty talk about her requests, but mine were basically following up on a legislative visit we made earlier this year where the senator wasn't available because they were in session, but it was to work towards alternative energy capital dollars, especially in regards to wind turbines. So we're working on that. Also, I got a call from the County Commissioners Association, new president-elect. Well, she actually the president. We installed her last week, Paula Brooks, Franklin County Commissioner, asked me to serve on the Board of Trustees for the County Commissioner's Office. So as I asked Commissioner Blair, I'm going to have to step off of the Transportation Advisory Committee with NOACA because on the third Friday of every month I'll have to be in Columbus working with the CCAO. So I thank Commissioner Brooks and look forward to next year and trying to make it a better place.
Congratulations, Ted. I think that's wonderful that we're going to have a seat back on CCAO's board. That way we'll know what's going on even more. As Commissioner Kalo mentioned, we met this morning before the board meeting with Diane Downing, who is Senator Voinovich's aide, and I gave her a copy of the Morning Journal editorial that talks about transit because it led to my favorite topic, commuter rail. We've had a couple meetings this week, and if we don't find a solution to our Lorain County transit problem, the commuter rail project will go nowhere because the people in Chicago and elsewhere look at what we provide for our local match with respect to transit. So we've got an earmark from Congresswoman Betty Sutton. We've got our match. We're ready to go. But sometimes they look jadedly at what we do locally. So we've got to work very hard at that if we want to keep that commuter rail alternative analysis study moving forward. So we're going to have to do that. So a plea out there to any of you who'd like to see this happen in Lorain, Cuyahoga, and Erie County, get on board, literally. And Merry Christmas to all of you, because this is our last board meeting, I hope.
That's it.
Yeah.
We're not meeting on Tuesday?
No.
That was
You
to
left
do-
the room and I talked to the clerk.
Do we need to? Because we were gonna do budgets, but we did it today.
And I put
Right.
everything on today's agenda.
Everything's on today's
She took
agenda.
care of it all, Jim.
What?
She'll
need
she'll
something?
tell us what we're going to do, and I don't think it's here, unless there's a reason why you need the pleasure of our company, since some
Well,
of us have a few.
I would actually take back the word pleasure, but
It's always a
We already gave the
pleasure.
authorization
Where's my
so-
ruler?
the
Give me my ruler.
there's a few issues we'll talk about.
If we need to, we can, but we have constraints about when we can meet.
Okay.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Bah
Merry
humbug.
Christmas. Happy
Bah
New Year.
humbug, he says.
And a Happy New Year, too.
Well, just to let you all know, I've been appointed to serve back on CCAO Engineers Clerks Association for the 2010 Northwest District
And
Representative.
congratulations to you,
Thank
too.
You're in the
you.
Northwest District and in the County Commissioners, I'm in the Northeast District. That makes no sense whatsoever.
They don't really
Why?
know
You
where
took-
we
So
are.
you got Erie and Huron. I've got Lake Ashtabula. I've got this side. You got that side, huh?
How would you have Lake and Ashtabula?
Because that's north.
That's
It's
Northeast.
I-
I'm in the
sorry,
Northeast
I'm in-
District.
I'm in Northeast.
I knew
Okay,
it.
thank you. I was
I
wondering
knew
how you were in
that.
the Northeast, East, West. Thank you.
At least he was paying attention.
Yeah, I know. Thank you.
I thought he was just
So
kind
we're
of like,
together then.
yeah,
Oh, I was,
really pay attention to what people say.
yes, I do.
Let me, couple things, one thing in particular. We are at fact-finding today, and we might as well do this now, because we're gonna get a fact-finding report between Christmas and January 1st. So we're gonna have to meet to deal with that.
The 29th or the 30th, Mr. Cortez?
Whatever
29th is
the
not good for
pleasure
me.
of the
Not sure.
board, but,
It isn't any pleasure at all. You just said so.
well, you get to meet with me, that's a pleasure for you.
Oh, gosh.
But we are going to have to meet again prior to the end of the year to
the
deal
30th
with that report. It's been indicated to me that we should receive the fact finders report on the 29th of December. Now, I cannot guarantee you 100% that's going to happen. That's in discussions. We could either wait, and as we get closer, I'll know when the reports come in, but we'll have the report to deal with within just a short time frame.
Do we have to do that in a public meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
And how many days after you get it? Do we have that?
We have about 5 days,
Okay.
depending on the timing of when we get it.
Well,
But for various reasons, I would like it dealt with in this calendar year, with regard to when our contract expires.
okay, but there's only so many days in this calendar year, and after the 31st, we run out of opportunity.
Today's
I
the
understand.
So
17th.
would you like to schedule it for the 30th, please?
That's up to
today?
that's up to the board.
Well, I
What
think,
day is the 30th?
Wednesday.
well, I think you better wait and see when you get it.
I can do Wednesday, can't I, Sherry?
Tony Ann, I left my phone with my calendar sitting in my office, so if you can plug me into that, okay.
I would much rather schedule the meeting and then cancel it than to try to have the clerk go through the gyrations of getting an emergency meeting.
Right.
Okay, why don't we schedule for the 30th then? We'll schedule for the 30th.
What'd you say, Teresa?
I said I scheduled myself off, but that's okay, I'll come in.
Mhm.
So, the 30th
Yes.
Okay.
at,
9:30.
okay,
And we can cancel it if,
yeah, we can cancel, it's better to schedule, so.
okay.
Also, well, then we'll scratch that next one out. Organizational meeting will be January 11th at 9:30. Commissioners will have their meeting on Wednesdays at 9:30, so the first one will be January 20th, regular board meeting. Commissioners also sent retiring proclamations to Borough Squire, 20 years, and Lodessa Lattimore, 23 years at Job and Families. The IRS mileage reimbursement for 2010 will be 50 cents, and Lorain County TID will meet on Monday, January 11th at 11 a.m. Board correspondence?
I move the reading be waived.
Second,
Discussion, Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Blair.
Uh,
Public comment,
Madam
Oh,
Clerk,
yes.
item H5, well,
H5, yes.
Oh, and here she's coming.
H5, yes.
Elisa has gone, but they've asked for payment of that $260.59 incurred expense. Ron, can we do anything about that? Good morning, Nancy.
morning, Nancy.
Good morning. Nancy Fenai from Lorain Soil and Water. I sincerely am grateful for the commissioners to fund our office instead of closing it. We will continue to provide the landowners and the commissioners with the best possible service. Thank you very much.
Thank you for
You're
your
welcome.
services, Nancy. We need to follow through on that bill. It needs to be paid.
It's only like $200, isn't it?
It's $260.59, and that, basically, if I can remember correctly, on those expenses were paper, ink cartridges,
Right.
office supply stuff, so.
So what's the holdup? Why can't?
Well, they didn't have any money
They
in their
had no
budget.
money in their budget to
Oh.
do it, so.
So, Ron, will you ask Lisa to, thank you. Thank you.
Good morning. Dave Kidder, Allied Waste / Republic Services. I want to make a few comments about last week's meeting and some things that were said that I needed to do a little research on. One of the items that came up was the $30 million improvement in profitability for Republic Services year over year. That improvement reported at the corporate level in Phoenix was really the result of putting two corporations together into one. What happens when you take two corporations and you have two corporate offices, duplication of many, many jobs. There were hundreds of people, unfortunately, in mid-upper level management positions, including our CEO of Allied, that no longer work for this corporation. So the majority of that $30 million improvement was a result of putting those two corporations into one. At a local level, talking about this company locally, we did lose a $7 million contract with the city of Cleveland 2 months ago. That contract was worth approximately $7 million in annual revenue. That contract, combined with 3 other opportunities that we had in the last 6 months, would have brought in about 300,000 tons of volume to the landfill. Now, turn that into dollars. At the $260 per ton level that we've requested for out-of-county fees, that would have brought in about $780,000 annually to the solid waste district. New Russia Township, at the fee level that we have agreed to with them, would have brought them another $100,000+, I'm sorry, another $300,000 in revenue annually. And just, I guess, a note that I need to make here. Sometimes it seems as though there are in certain circles in this county we're thought of as villains, and I'm not quite sure why. The solid waste district and New Russia Township receive $5 million annually from our landfill. Mr. Billman's department doesn't exist without that $3.5 million that we provide. In addition to that, we employ 400 people that are county residents who contribute significantly to the economy in this county through property taxes, income taxes, sales taxes on goods and purchases and services in this county. In the last 12 months, we have delivered 30,000 recycle carts to homeowners in this county at no additional expense to them. So we have 30,000 more people now with the ability to have curbside recycling. We've also offered them the opportunity to participate in a recycling rewards program throughout those 30,000 households. That was solely at our expense. We pay a company called Recycle Bank to administer that program and offer those rewards to those residents. So I'm a little confused sometimes as to why we're looked at as a villain. I hope we are looked at in a little better light. The New Russia Township trustees on Tuesday night agreed to reduce our fees that we pay to them. But that's completely subject and pending an agreement with Allied Republic and the Lorain County Commissioners to reduce the fees at the county level at the requested amount that we have actually requested. So,
Can I interrupt you 1 second, David? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Can I interrupt you? I actually was reading through that and I sent some corrections to it because it said to $1.40 a ton. I think you meant lowering it $1.40 a ton in your language. On the
it's
letter I was-
reducing it $1.40 to the
It didn't say that.
260 level.
It doesn't say that.
I'm sorry.
Okay. So
The reduction is
Okay.
$1.40, which would take it to the 260 level.
In your meeting with the trustees, was that an extension in the same reduction as what you had in place?
With New Russia,
Yes.
what they agreed to, Lori, was the fees go back to where they were January 1. And the first of the month, after an agreement is made with you folks, if one is made, then the fees drop back to $1 with New Russia. So they will reduce our fees 55 cents a ton through 2012 based on an agreement with you folks of a reduction at the county level of $1.40. So it is, we're counting on you folks to help us grow. We lost one contract. We have another significant contract that will be out for bid sometime in April, May. That contract currently provides about, at the 260 level, with the $1.40 reduction, it means about $240,000 a year to the solid waste district, currently. And that contract is at risk. There's also 18 jobs tied to that contract that are at risk. At the current fee levels, what will happen with that contract is exactly what we predicted would happen with Cleveland. We will lose that contract at the current fee structure. We can't keep it. All 4 contracts that I talked about in the last 3 minutes, were lost to the same competitor who has a much lower fee structure. So we're putting it in your hands. We will continue to promote recycling in this county. We will continue to promote the Recycle Rewards program in this county, and would like to add more jobs in 2010, 11, and 12. But we need your help through 2012. And we have the commitment from New Russia. We hope we get your commitment. And thank you for your time.
Well,
And
I just want to comment, you questioned why, a lot of the people in the county, not us specifically up here, but people consider your company the villain. And I think part of the problem is, and I've had this problem myself, is the fact that everybody thought they were under contract with Allied, and then because of the gas prices, you were able to, even while in contract, impose the surcharge on the residents for the gasoline. And, you know, people don't like change. That's another issue. And they had to change the cart system at the same time their bills are going up because you were able to charge them for gas. So that's,
Okay.
I think that's, I'm just trying to answer the
Well,
question that you
you
asked,
can't-
why are you the villain? That, I think, is why.
You can't run 60 gallons of fuel a day in a truck from an old rate of $1.30 a gallon to last year's rate of $4.65 a gallon and survive. Not providing the type of service we do. In most of the homes in this county, we are running 3 trucks past every home. A trash truck, a recycle truck, and a yard waste truck. 3 trucks, every house, 50 gallons a day per truck. Our fuel in 2006 was $1.30 a gallon. In 2008, it was $4.65. It remains $2.80 a gallon today. So we're paying $1.50 more a gallon for fuel today than we were in 2006. The fuel adjustment has come down by about 60%, the fuel surcharge, in the last 12 months. It's still there, but it's significantly lower, Commissioner, than it was in 2008.
And that's another issue that it brings to my mind is the fact, okay, the gas went up.
Yes.
The cost of maybe your union contracts for wages has gone up.
Sure.
The cost to provide health care for your employees has gone up.
Absolutely.
But the fee for in-county and out-of-county has stayed the same for the last 20 years. There was no increase. That was a set fee that, and now you want that reduced. So
Absolutely.
address that.
There is a reason, all right. The other landfill that we were forced to divest of as a result of this merger, which is in northern Richland County, extremely northern Richland County, just south of Ashland County, pays their county in fees $1 per ton. We are paying $4. They pay their local township 25 cents per ton. We are paying $1.55 to New Russia. Well, we were and we will be January 1. That puts us at an unfair competitive disadvantage. That's why we lost the Cleveland contract. We were close. We were close. I mean, we took the bid, our bid for the city of Cleveland contract was lower by $1.50 per ton than what we were charging them previously. We cut $1.50, almost $400,000 out of our revenue to try to retain that contract for obvious reasons. We lost it anyway. So what was good 20 years ago for a lot of things, Lori, for a lot of things, including different budget situations here, is not good today. Now, we anticipate that to change in 2013 at the other landfill. There's a contract with that other landfill that runs through 2012. So what we're asking for is a reduction through 2012, not forever, to be revisited in 2012. What we have is an agreement with New Russia is through 2012. And then our agreement actually goes right back to the existing fee structure in 2013 with New Russia. But no agreement, pending no agreement with the county, with New Russia. So, you know, by adding just simply the rewards program for the 30,000 households in the county, just the recycle rewards program, cost us, including administrative costs, about 25 grand a month, per month, that we did not pass on to the resident. So we've taken and tried to improve upon your solid waste district's want for improvement in recycling. And we've seen improvement in recycling. I've seen it at my own home. I live in Carlisle Township. I now have a green cart to put my recyclables in. I'm also part of that rewards program. My wife loves that rewards program. She takes advantage of it. I don't, but she does. She wheels the cart to the street, so she should take advantage of the program.
That fair's fair.
It seems like it, doesn't it, Commissioner?
Well, David, I have a question for you because
Sure.
This market, we have to be more competitive. I agree totally. A couple years ago, we did the Lorain for the one-time shot, the Cleveland contract. It wasn't successful. I don't have a problem doing that, but so far we've only heard one major against us passing any legislation. Have you had any more dialogue with the city of Lorain and the mayor and his directors and/or city council, or however that process works in the cities, as to what's going to happen there? Because he came out quite vocally against us passing any type of legislation, and next year we're working on a new plan.
Right.
And without the vote of the city of Lorain, we'll never get a new plan instituted. So I think they are a key
understand.
part, and they're also a large base of your customers. So I don't know where you are.
We are working hard with Mayor Krashenko to work out a new program and to extend that contract for 3 additional years at a minimum, with some rate guarantees that we've made to Mayor Krashenko that he is contemplating at the moment. So I think we're close, okay? I don't want to speak for Mayor Krashenko.
Well, I know they had their last council meeting Monday, and by what I've read in the papers, their contract expires December 31st.
That is correct. That is correct. So we have a very short time frame to get something done with City of Lorain. I do believe we will have something done in the next 10 days. So, and iron all those issues out. So, but we have made some rate guarantees for Lorain residents. And in fact, just, I guess an FYI, and I don't want to pick on the city of Elyria, but their rates for trash removal service per home now are up to $19.75 per month. Our rate in the city of Lorain, including the fuel surcharge, is about $15.90. So we're offering the Lorain residents almost a $4 per home per month rate, a lower rate than what Elyria residents are paying to the city of Elyria. So we believe, and will continue to believe, that our rates will remain competitive. And there's been a study done by I think it's GT Environmental or what, Michael Greenberg's group. Mm-hmm. There's been a study done by them looking at rates in Lorain County for residential trash collection that are more than competitive with surrounding counties, and in fact lower than almost all 3 surrounding counties: Cuyahoga, Medina, and Erie, and Huron. So we will continue to work hard to offer additional services, including recycling to subscription homeowners in the county, and try to improve upon that. And Recycle Bank would like to see us, that company would like to see us somewhere around 100,000 households with that rewards program in the next 18 months. So they're looking for us to go from 30,000 homes today to 100,000 homes by mid-2011, which we would love to see happen.
And it's so easy to recycle. My recycle barrel was full, my blue barrel was half full.
That's always the case at my house too, Commissioner. I appreciate that. And I think that we are seeing much more of that with what we've offered, that people can put in those green carts that they couldn't put out in blue bags.
I would love to have one of them at my house, but I live in the city of Lorain currently, so I'll have
Well-
to wait.
Well, you have Mayor Krashenko's ear as much as I do. I would give him a little, give him a
You
little
could talk
pat on
to
the
the
back and see if
mayor.
we can head in
I
that
hate hauling
direction.
those big blue bags out every week.
You could talk to the mayor.
It makes it a lot easier to recycle with a cart. It does.
Well, you can put everything in it, correct?
Yes. I mean, there's very little that you can't put in that green cart, including cereal boxes, pizza boxes, magazines, junk mail.
At my house, those carts aren't large enough for the pizza boxes.
Maybe you have to fold them down.
Well, I know, I can tell you this, the average homeowner with the old blue bag program was putting out about 6 to 7 pounds of recyclables out per week. The average homeowner with a green cart is putting out 18 pounds per home per week. That is no longer going in the garbage.
It's good.
And it's all going in that green
Very
cart.
good.
So we will continue to promote those programs, and we look for your help with this on a short-term basis. It's not forever. We think we can weather the storm with some help from the county and the township. And with that, I just wish all three of you a Merry Christmas, and
Merry Christmas to you too.
thanks for your time.
Thanks, Dave.
Have a great day.
You too.
I'm Mary Beth Derricito from Huntington Township. I would just like to remind you all that when we set the original tipping fee charges, we did it in the hopes that having the highest fee possible would control the amount of stuff going into the landfill, therefore preserving its life, including what we do for recycling. But we did want to extend the life of the landfill. That's the word I was groping for. I also would like to mention that at this point in time, there are some other waste haulers that come in the county. Because we have the opportunity to work with some other people, there is some competition, and doing away with competition by making this, requiring one company to take, or to have all the garbage from the county go into one landfill will cut out the competition. And that is never good for business or for the customers. So I do want you to keep those things in mind. They are important. They were part of the original plan. And I do feel that looking at the reduction of waste going into the landfill, it is working. And we do need to consider how long we want to have that before we have to cite another one. I'd hate to see a landfill going in at the airport. Thank you, and Merry Christmas.
Well, Mary
Hey,
Beth.
there's an alternative.
Yeah. Mary Beth, in regards to solid waste, because you served on the committee for years,
Yes.
I don't know if you are, I'll be on next year again.
Yeah, no, I'm not on right now.
You're not on right now? Okay.
But I've been there from the very beginning, and one of the great concerns was preserving landfill space.
I understand that, but currently, with the increased amount of recycling, we're extending the landfill automatically.
Well,
Should-
not if we bring in a lot of stuff from out of county and put it in there.
Well, I still believe, and I've had a lot of discussions throughout the industry, that 10 or 15 years from now, we will be recycling so much more that we'll be extending automatically the life of the landfill. And that comes from a lot of our environmental people and the studies. I spent a lot of time reading that information. But to let the dollars leave our district and go to Richland County or Mahoning County or wherever they are, in these economic times, I think is foolhardy on our part, because we still need to support our solid waste district to support the mandates of the EPA to do recycling. And this isn't a long-term fix forever. It's a short-term 2-year plan or 3-year plan, 10, 11, 12, until we go into the next cycle. So I don't think that we are inhibiting competition, whereas we are keeping the people who work in our county still working.
Well, I
So-
frequently use another company, and I know Grafton did too, and because of that, Grafton was able to get some concessions from Allied Waste that they couldn't have gotten if they hadn't had a competitor.
I agree. No, competition is good at that point. I never want to stifle competition. But I'm saying if we put our people at a competitive enough rate within our county to keep our people working and the revenues here, then the other companies that are coming in to take business, outside competition coming in, then they will be on the same ground that our current employers here are.
Well, again, you have to look at what the cost of building a new landfill would be, and if you have to do that in 15 years, you know, you might want to extend the life of this one another 5 or 10, and I don't think recycling alone will do it.
Okay. Well, it's a matter of opinion. We all have those.
That's mine. Thanks.
Thanks, Mary Beth.
Morning.
Morning, Charles.
Still morning.
Good morning, Charles Benke.
I love that voice from radio. I missed that.
Oh, do you?
Yes,
do you
I
actually
do,
listen to
Charles.
that? Okay, good. You don't hear me out there anymore. I am kind of quietly behind the scenes on some things that are going on at the Ag office occasionally. But I would certainly, first of all, like to say to you, thank you for your appropriations to both the Lorain County Extension Service and the Soil and Water Conservation District to make, because they do work together on many a different thing out there. And it's important that that continues for, well, for our commercial agricultural producers in Lorain County, we often don't think of a lot of times, and also for the commercial landscape industry that we, the Extension Service, have to service because of the pesticide issues that often develop along the way to keep certification up for a lot of these people that have licenses to spray here in the county. So you may think, from also the 4-H angle, also development of our youth here in the county, that certainly want to thank you to help support. So that's it.
Well, Charles, don't run away. As we spoke before, we were looking into a private-public sector funding of that. If you know these entities who use the services of OSU Extension, we would love some private injection of funds to get that organization back up where it needs to be to provide those services. We met the minimum needs, $103,800 that was required, but we don't have any additional dollars.
Yes,
So maybe
we'll
we
be
could
helping to talk to some of them along the way.
Well, can we use you as a reference point through Ron Twining, who's putting together those informations to help us acquire possibly some private sector dollars?
I suppose that might be possible. I
Oh,
would
thank
also
you so much,
suggest
Charles.
the horticulture person that is in out there currently.
Melanich.
Yes,
Yes.
Tim. So, thank you.
Thank you.
And Merry
And
Christmas.
thank you for
Merry
your
Christmas
offer
to
of
you.
And
help.
a Happy New Year.
Yeah, we're gonna work on it.
Yes.
Anyone else wishing to address the board? Seeing none, I move that we go into executive session as outlined by our administrator and assistant county prosecutor.
Second.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Unless otherwise announced, meetings are held Thursday mornings at 9:30 at the Lorain County Administration Building, 226 Middle Avenue, 4th floor, downtown Elyria. These are public meetings, and as always, you are invited to attend.
In 1787, the Continental Congress organized the lands from the Ohio River to the Mississippi into the Northwest Territories. In 1803, the first of these territories to become a state was Ohio. Ohio was in turn divided into various land grants, including the Connecticut Western Reserve in the northeast corner of the state. The Western Reserve included the area that is today Lorain County. As Ohio gradually increased its counties to the present 88, the land we know as Lorain County went through several changes. Until 1810, the area was split between Geauga and Portage counties. When the area was being organized into Lorain County in 1822, it was created out of land from Huron, Cuyahoga, and Medina counties. At the time of its birth, Lorain County included Olmsted Township, now in Cuyahoga County, Spencer and Homer Townships, now in Medina County, and Troy and Sullivan Townships, now in Ashland County. This map illustrates the county as it appeared at the time of Ohio's centennial, and although some of the townships have been absorbed by incorporation, it also represents the shape of Lorain County today. Let's take a brief historical look at each of Lorain County's 21 townships. In 1807, the Calvin Hoadley and Herman Bronson families of Waterbury, Connecticut, began the settlement of Columbia. After a 3-month trek, the pioneers arrived in their new homeland in time to celebrate Christmas. The Bronsons, including their 7-month-old son, began that winter sheltered by their overturned bobsled wagon converted into a frontier lean-to. The mouth of the Black River also saw the beginning of its first settlement in 1807, when Azariah Beebe established a trading post for Nathan Perry. This area, which 20 years earlier had seen a short-lived Moravian mission, would gradually grow into the village of Charleston in the township called Black River. Years later, this township would be removed from county maps because of the incorporation of the city of Lorain. Charleston adopted the county's name of Lorain when the city was incorporated in 1874. The dramatic growth of the city was spurred on by the expanding fishing and shipbuilding industries. In 1894, when Tom Johnson brought his steel mill to town, Lorain's destiny to be the county's largest city was assured. In 1813, the township of Ridgeville was officially organized. 3 years earlier, members of the Beebe, Terrell, and Root families had established this new settlement they called Rootstown. The change to Ridgeville was decided upon to indicate the sand ridges that passed through the area and provided transportation routes and fertile farmland. The area around the intersection of Butternut Ridge and Roots Road first called Briggs Corner, was by 1880 known as Fields Corners and was the site of the town's water well. With the growth of the city of North Ridgeville, the township of Ridgeville was incorporated out of existence. In 1810, Silas Wilmot, along with Asa and Ira Morgan, erected a cabin on Butternut Ridge, and the community later called Eaton Township was begun. Wilmot married Chloe Hubbard of Ashtabula, and they were given the cabin, thereby becoming the township's pioneering couple. When Ridgeville Township was organized in 1813, it included Eaton, which was at that time called Holbrook. While the area was still a part of Cuyahoga County, the township of Eaton was separated from Ridgeville. Its first officers were elected in 1823, while the township was in transition to the new Lorain County. Amherst's township's founding can be traced to one Jacob Shoup. After first settling on the Black River, he moved in 1811 to the Beaver Creek. By 1815, he had erected a grist mill and the area's first distillery. Whiskeyville, today the intersection of Routes 58 and 113, earned its nickname as a center for the production of this important pioneer commodity. As the primary community of the township developed at the Old Spring, it came to be known as Amherst Corners. By 1836, the name Amherstville was recorded in the county offices, and in 1873, the town was incorporated as North Amherst. In 1909, the U.S. Postal Service had to choose between the villages of North and South Amherst. They chose the former, which then became the official and present-day Amherst. In 1917, in the northeast corner of the county, the township of Avon became another of Lorain County's 21 townships to vanish due to city incorporation. In 1814, Wilbur Cahoon had arrived from Montgomery County, New York, to become the first to settle in what was then Troy Township of Cuyahoga County. The farming community grew around its power source, the French Creek. Development along the interurban line would incorporate the northern part of the township into the city of Avon Lake in 1911, with the remainder of the township becoming the village of Avon in 1917. It was families such as the Burrell, Day, and Roots who established themselves in the Sheffield area in 1815 and 16. The township of Sheffield would not actually be created until 1824, when the newly elected Lorain County Commissioners made the township one of the first acts of their administration. The land had been primarily in Cuyahoga County prior to the 1822 reorganization. The southwest corner of the township was in Huron County and is today the only place to find a small section still called Sheffield Township. The remainder of the area has been incorporated, like its neighbor Avon, with the north becoming Sheffield Lake and the south the village of Sheffield. In 1816, Colonel Henry Brown of Stockbridge, Massachusetts, purchased a large tract of land known as Number 6, Range 19. Mr. Brown would later name the township after himself by simply adding Helm to his family name. Like the old Saxon Ham, the suffix meant home. The Deacon Shepherd family were the first settlers when they arrived on July 4, 1817. The village of Brownhelm Mills, located in Benjamin Bacon's Mill Hollow, was one of 3 communities to develop. Bacon's Corners, or the center, was 3 miles east of the hollow, while just west of the hollow was Rugby, where stores, a church, a school, and the post office were located. The first settlers to the Grafton Township area were Jonathan and Grendall Rawson in 1816. 10 years later, the Rawsons were forced to build a grist mill, or forfeit their land under their original agreement with the Western Reserve Land Company. Railroads and quarries were the greatest influence on the growth of the village the locals called Rawsonville. The quarrying industry in particular was responsible for the influx of French-Canadian, Welsh, Irish, Polish, and German immigrants. In 1877, when the village was being incorporated, the name Rawsonville was dropped in favor of the railroad station name of Grafton. Originally a part of Elyria Township, Carlisle was settled in 1816 by John Bacon of Windham County, Vermont. When the new Lorain County was being organized in 1822, Carlisle Township became its own entity. LaPorte developed as the township village with Phineas Johnson as the first postmaster and hotel owner. In 1840, Anson Brayman's Carlisle Nursery became the first of its kind in Lorain County. Quarrying was another important industry of the township, as the sandstone blocks were used for city buildings as far away as Toronto. Founding father Heman Ely owned over 10,000 acres of the land that would be developed into the township of Elyria, and the city, which also bears his family name. In 1817, Artemus Beebe headed a work crew that came to establish a new village at the Y of the Black River branches. Mills were constructed and the main street cleared. Beebe's crew also erected a home for Mr. Ely at Broad and East Bridge Streets, and a home for himself across the street, which became the Beebe Tavern. Both structures avoided demolition until well into the 20th century. In 1822, Mr. Ely spearheaded the movement to create Lorain County. He donated the land for the county courthouse, thus influencing the choice of Elyria as the county seat. Mr. Ely's little village would develop into a city with a varied industrial base as well as the center of government for Lorain County. Simon Durand came to America as an interpreter for Revolutionary War hero French General Lafayette. Durand remained in the new nation and in the winter of 1817 moved from New York State to the 160 acres he had purchased south of Brownhelm. 10 years later, the population of the area was enough to support the formation of a new township. With the southern portion ceded to Brighton and the northern portion annexed from Brownhelm, the township of Henrietta was created in 1827. Although New England families represented the majority of settlers to the area in 1818, one of the pioneers was William Welling of Montgomery County, New York. History is not clear if the community was named in honor of Welling or for the famous English Duke of Wellington, hero of Europe's recent Napoleonic Wars. With the coming of the railroad, Wellington grew into an agricultural marketplace, and in fact was the nation's leader in cheese production from 1870 to 1900. The county fair, now located in Wellington, helps to continue the depiction of small-town America shown in native son Archibald Willard's famous painting, The Spirit of '76. In 1818, Joseph Sage and the family of his son-in-law, John Laborie, journeyed through a severe winter from Connecticut to their new homestead in Huntington Township. More pioneering families came to the area, and by 1822, the population was such that the Medina County Commissioners incorporated the township using the Huntington, Connecticut hometown of many of the settlers as its new name. Lumber, grain, and cheese dominated the local economy. In 1824, when Lorain County came into full operation, Huntington was transferred from Medina County. The citizens of Old Russia Township, that had been first settled in 1818, requested detachment from Black River Township in 1825. The town and college of Oberlin were founded in 1833 and would grow to dominate the area. The Oberlin concept combined a Christian community and a Christian coeducational institute. Through the influence of founders John Shippard and Philo Stewart, New York businessman Arthur Tappan, and noted evangelist Charles Finney, the college would become not only co-ed, but also multiracial and the nation's leader in the abolitionist movement. The independent spirit that created the first Russia Township was evident once again in 1992, as New Russia Township detached itself from Oberlin. In 1820, the Peter Penfield family began the permanent settlement of the area he had first selected in the fall of 1818. Penfield Township's organizational election was held in April of 1825. The first religious service was held in 1826, and the first school was in session in the summer of 1829. The township's first post office put the emphasis on post and not the office. As the Penfields lived well off the established mail route, a hollow tree near the river was used by the local residents for sending and receiving the mail. The township, with its fertile soil, grew into a part of Lorain County's rich agricultural heritage. In the fall of 1820, Abner Loveland Jr. became the first permanent settler of Brighton. Within a year, the families of Joseph Kingsbury and Abner Loveland Sr. had arrived, and the new community began to grow. With elections held in the spring of 1823, Brighton Township was being organized at the same time the area was being transferred from Medina to Lorain County. Like much of the new county, Brighton was essentially agricultural. Although Pittsfield's first settlers arrived in 1813, the area was considered too dangerous because of the British and Indian activity connected to the War of 1812. By 1820, the land was surveyed. Milton Whitney became the owner of a large parcel. Whitney arranged for the Waite brothers of Russia Township to become the first permanent settlers in the spring of 1821. By 1831, there were enough residents to request that the county incorporate a township independent of Wellington. Pittsfield was chosen as the township's name to honor the Massachusetts hometown of many of the area's pioneers. LaGrange Township's first settler was Nathan Clark, who in the fall of 1825 established his new homestead on the east branch of the Black River. By the summer of 1826, 14 more settlers had arrived. The name LaGrange, which is French for the farm, was chosen to honor French General Lafayette, as it was also the name of his country state. In 1827, the area was separated from Carlisle Township and reorganized with elections in April into the new township of LaGrange. By 1875, the center had grown into a village, also incorporated as LaGrange. The pioneer settler of the Camden area was Leonard Clark. Over the next 4 years, other families moved into the area, including Roswell Babcocks, who built the first frame house in 1833. Early on, the area was divided between Henrietta and Brighton townships. In 1835, the new township of Camden was created by the county commissioners, and the first elections held in April of 1836. When the first post office was established in 1835, the community was called Panelise. The name was changed to Camden, then later to North Camden.